everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Knightley and I'm super excited to be back in London, back up into the offices, interviewing an incredible guest, Dee Ludlow, who knows all about cryptocurrency. So if you want to know more, you want to get involved, stick around because there's going to be huge value in this episode. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's podcast is kindly sponsored by Casita Properties, the UK's leading property company when it comes to discreet, off-market, buy-to-let sales, and all of their link and information will be in the description below. So Dee, I welcome you back onto the channel. Love having you here, mate. So firstly, thanks for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's good to do it in person this time.
Yeah, really nice to meet. We met last year, towards the end of last year, at a networking event, and it was great to meet you. So very excited to have you on today. We're going to go into crypto, entrepreneurship. There's going to be some very interesting topics, so do not go anywhere. We're going to kick this off. We're in 2022, January. The crypto market is very hot at the moment. So for those that have that interest in the cryptocurrency, what's going on right now and kind of what's that entry for someone looking to dibble dabble into the cryptocurrency space?
So at the moment, as of today, the market isn't looking the greatest. So you timed this perfectly.
We did.
I think it's a wake-up call for people that are invested, that have recently invested or maybe want to be invested in the market. If you look back at May last year when everything sort of rolled over initially, I think a lot of people that was sort of seeing those unrealized gains and spending them in their mind but not actually realizing them had a second chance quite recently to realize them on the way back up and start taking profits if that's what you want to do. It all depends on your time horizon of how long you want to be in the market. But as you look at these swings, it's all good looking at these swings to the downside and being like, look, we're down 50%. Then they forget about them swings to the upside. But if you don't take profit on the way up, then you're going to always be in the same position. Long term, if you hold, then you're more than likely, depending on what project you're in, you're going to be in profit. But it just shows that there is strategy needed. You need to have some sort of strategy. You can't just be doing this wildly and just without
guesswork.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I'm glad we're starting on this, and this is something important to address as we get into this interview, is that you have to have a plan. This can't be a case of, Billy Bob down the pub said crypto's amazing, I'm going to invest into it. You have to have a plan, and I think there's a lot of blindness when people jump onto this investment strategy that I'll buy and I hope that it pays off. Whereas, like you said, we spoke about this previously actually on our previous video, is having that plan of cost averaging in, but when you're in profit, if that's your strategy, cost average out. So there has to be a strategy, right?
Well, look, if I said to a property investor, a watch collector, your watch or your properties dropped by 50%, right? You're not going to quickly ring up you're not going to go down the nearest pawn shop or ring the local estate agent and say, look, market's dropped 50%, I need out, right?
Out.
So if you actually spent time researching what you're actually buying, then you're not going to be quick to want to sell if the market turns into a state of fear like we're seeing now. And if you look at history in any asset class, like we was discussing before we just started, if you are cost averaging in, then this is a great time to average your position if you've bought higher. So, and if you are cost averaging in over a long period of time, you can still sleep at night if you do have a strategy. If you just buy in this because someone down the pub, like you said, told you that this next project's going to go to the moon, then you're going to have a lot of sleepless nights when stuff like today's happened.
Well, this is what happens, and this is why we're on this podcast today, is to offer information, and a resource to listen to and hopefully be more informed if the audience is perhaps going to get involved in cryptocurrency. And what I want to talk about now is there's been a real shift since Facebook has turned to the Meta, and now there's this huge movement in the Metaverse. It's opened new opportunity for new coins, the possibility of an online Metaverse transaction, which is where crypto may play a huge part. What I'm seeing a lot of now, and I hope this really relates to the audience and answers a lot of questions here, is that people are now jumping from those big players, your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, Cardano, and they're going, I need to buy Engine Coin, Decentraland, all the new coins that might move into the metaverse. Do you think there's a problem with people going, I'm leaving Bitcoin. That was a big player, but apparently something else is going to blow up.
It's because they're all looking for the next moonshot. And I do believe you need to be a part of certain trends, but understand them first. Yes, you might miss the initial pump, but it's very early. Even Bitcoin, right? People think they've missed the boat. But if you've got a longer term time horizon and you look at it like this is a recognized asset class now. So long term, you dollar cost average into Bitcoin, Ethereum, the real big blue chips, then that's how you would dollar cost average into Amazon, Apple.
Like a stock.
Yeah. And like when Amazon dropped 90%, people weren't saying, this is dead. Well, some people were, but long term, the people that held and kept cost averaging in, making sure their position is where they are at today, then cool, it paid off. So I think that moving into new tokens isn't a bad thing, because they've got legs as well, but it's understanding what you're doing. Now, the Metaverse, to see it play out real life Ready Player One, I don't think we're going to be quite there yet for a good few years. But you can see with VR, AR, the amount of investment from the big companies going into just blockchain and in VR, AR and all the new technology. VR is not really new technology, but the use case is here now. Yeah. I think that it is good to be invested in that, because I'm a big advocate of look, let's invest in the future. And that's the way I look at things, is invest in what's to come rather than what's here right now. I prefer that myself personally, but it's down to personal risk tolerance, I think.
Do you think also we're exposed to too much of this, the next big thing, like you say, to the moon? Because I know people that would cost average and were real believers of Bitcoin, but as soon as new coins come in that have this, it was 33p and now it's £2.78, they instantly jump to that coin and they've missed that peak. And like you said, I don't believe that there will be the only peaks that happen, just like Bitcoin. And my strategy around Bitcoin is that I believe in the next 5-10 years it could be a huge part of currency in a metaverse. So I cost average, but too many people seem to just jump very quickly, and I think that's quite dangerous.
I think it's because of its influences. If
totally
you look at, for instance, Terra Luna, right? Amazing project. I think it's long-term time horizon is going to be probably going to 10x from where we're at today. It's a great project. But when someone exposed their influencer list on Twitter,
I remember.
They had the biggest YouTube influencers with the biggest subscribers promoting the project. But this is, at the end of the day, this is their companies, right? So yes, people could say, is all this capital coming in because of that? Well, of course. But it's the same as when other companies advertise. When you go into Times Square or you go into Leicester Square, you can see these companies advertising everywhere because they want to attract new customers to whatever it is their product or service is, and by contributing towards buying their product and service, the company grows, the stock price grows. So it's the same as this. So they're just using PR for brand awareness, to build brand equity, and that's part of the game. So I look at it from one element and be like, look, you've got to be careful because these people are getting paid to push these projects, but at the same time, that's what's going to happen. That's just the nature of business. You need PR, especially the world we live in now. You need as much PR as you possibly can to grow your company. So, but you do have to be careful, because to get some of these influencers, may not cost as much money as people think. So some very new startups that just want a quick money grab could quite easily go to the big YouTubers and be like, look, we'll chuck you whatever, pump this, and then we're going to dump it, and then you can be a part of it. So you have got to be careful.
Well, there's two words I would say off the back of this. There is a lot of manipulation. I mean, we're not going to get into NFTs, but and around the influencers, but there is a lot of manipulation, and I think the only way to counter that is with education. So before you start making investment decisions, is that you really go ahead and you apply yourself to learning about whatever you're going to be, especially if you're financially parting with hard-earned money, is that you really know what you're putting your money into. So what is on the horizon when it comes to cryptocurrency? What coins are on the horizon that have, a good standing, they're going to solve a problem?
So I'm looking at trends more than anything. So we've seen gaming, especially since the whole Metaverse hype. Gaming's already done crazy stuff this year over the past 12 months, but I don't think it's touched the surface yet. So I think some of the gaming tokens, there's going to be some like real like new ones that are probably going to be a little bit too risky for people. But if you look at like Axie Infinity is the number one play to earn, but the staking rewards you can earn on their platform is incredible. The risk of a token collapse or some sort of liquidity crisis is going to be a lot smaller than most of the other tokens out there because of the amount of people, the user base on the platform. You got to remember the network effect and the amount of users that's holding these are like mini cults. So like you got real Bitcoin maxis. I was at the Bitcoin conference in June last year, and you can't even have a conversation about the opposite opinion with these, because they're just you can't even talk to Bitcoin maxis. Some of these Bitcoin maxis about another token. They just don't want to hear it.
Over bullish, isn't it?
So it's you have got to be careful. But yeah, Axie Infinity, I'm still super bullish on. Gala, I think the Gala games is big. UFO, Alluvium, all those sort of gaming tokens. Still a big fan of Avalanche. I think some of the biggest people in the game are talking about how scalable their blockchain is. Still a big fan of Solana. And I'm looking quite a lot on the adult entertainment tokens too. I think it's going to be very early. I think it's going to be incredible though, like Nafty, Tipsy. Like Nafty they have a few, so does Tipsy. Tipsy's creating their own adult entertainment metaverse, right? So you can imagine how people will be spending a lot of time in there. But the crazy thing is...
Why can't I get hold of Dee?
Yeah. I was looking at sort of the stats on the current sort of adult entertainment sector, and I think it was X-Video, some sort of European platform. You're smiling. You must. You're a subscriber.
We're going down a new route.
But it's. I think I've seen that they have like 3.5 billion users a month. Now, there's only 7.5 billion people in the world, right? So obviously people are going on there multiple times, but they're having more daily users than Amazon and Netflix, right? So when you think of how big the industry is, right, and when this it's already sort of a looked down upon industry as it is, and a lot of banks don't like to give them payment gateways as well. So when you think of how adult entertainment slots perfectly into crypto and bringing back the middleman makes all the money, right? So the content creators don't make the money really, so you're going to give the power back to the content creator, right? Which is what everybody wants. That's why sort of OnlyFans come around, but they still take huge cuts. Now Nafty are creating their own Nafty fans, so their own version of OnlyFans on the blockchain. They're going to have Nafty TV, which is like on-demand and adult entertainment like Netflix.
I love the way you know so much about it. I love this.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
So yeah, because I'm like super bullish on that stuff, because
it's
the trend, the adult entertainment trend for me it's funny because it's adult entertainment, but
I think what you're hitting on there is something that I've spoken about to someone else actually. I remember the conversation it's really the nail on the head. We laugh about it when we joke it's the adult industry, but it's also the same with gambling. I think gambling is going to be huge, and there will be sort of 18 plus industries that are going to boom because you're now going to be able to, like you say, make these transactions almost behind closed doors without having to show face and be like, the direct debit's coming through the post, and mum and dad are going to see the name of the company. But you're absolutely right. So that is a space to watch.
I think so. I think that it's very, very early. So I think that it's probably going to take a lot longer for it to progress. But looking at like Nafty and Tipsy now, you can only buy them on like PancakeSwap and those sort of decentralized exchanges. But I think that trend will come. When? Who knows? But I think that it's one of the sort of trends and sectors in the world that slots perfectly into cryptocurrency and the whole decentralized aspect of it. Yeah.
So, a confusion for many people, and also an area where you have to be careful, and I really stress this, I've spoken about it with other guests, is picking the right platform, because I'm starting to hear more and more of groups that set up identical platforms to the legitimate one. So firstly, if you could, are there platforms that are trusted to get into crypto, the token space?
Yeah, I would say, the centralized exchanges, Coinbase, Crypto.com, Binance, Kraken, I don't think anybody's going to have any issue with those. Yes, there's been times where some of these have been hacked and stuff, but I've known one of them in particular to get hacked, and they don't reimburse you, say, if they hacked your Bitcoin, but they'll give you the fiat equivalent back. So, I would say you're probably safer on those if you want to first invest in. Now, if you look at crypto.com, right, the amount of money they're putting into advertising, it wouldn't surprise me if they become probably the biggest exchange in the world,
right,
based on the fact they spent $700 million on advertisement in Staples Center. They sponsor the UFC, Formula One.
It's a great platform overall anyway.
Yeah, so I think that if you're going to trust any of them, the ones that are really consistently developing, Binance has just now moved its hub to Dubai. So they're trying to continue to grow. Coinbase Pro is where a lot of institutions on board. So yeah, I would say those four. Yeah, Kraken's a US bank. So those four are probably the ones, if you're in the UK, you can use. But there's loads. There are a lot. There's so many, but they're the ones. If you're security-wise, I'd be looking at
go with the big household names.
Yeah, if you're going to do it.
And definitely, if you are going to use a platform, just really do your research, because I know there have been like-for-like websites of smaller companies that have been set up. So definitely conduct thorough due diligence. When it comes to these actual platforms, obviously Coinbase has now almost partnered essentially with HMRC. Is this something that we need to be concerned about, or is this just a case of people just get used to it because this is going to happen whether we like it or not?
I think regulation's needed anyway. Some people need to be concerned because, those that may have invested early that didn't think this was going to happen, or didn't know when it was going to happen, may be put themselves in a certain situation because of, every time you exchange token for token, you're creating a taxable event. Staking creates taxable events. All of these things create taxable events. So it's not a case of, well, I haven't pulled my money back out into fiat, so I can structure my the way I pull money out so I don't go over the capital gains threshold. You've got to be careful because you're already creating taxable events as it goes. I would definitely speak to a crypto savvy accountant. There's not many out there that really understand this. Even the ones that have tried to understand it, you start talking to them about DeFi and it's hard. Like, I don't even think the HMRC understand this yet.
Well, this is a question. This was an unexpected question. Then, where does someone go to match up with a crypto savvy accountant? I mean, I wouldn't even know where to
go. There are a few out there. There are a few. But yeah, it's very hard to find one that invests in crypto is one that you're probably better off talking to. But it's very hard at the moment. I think that the tax authorities are going to struggle to really get to grips around all of this. The obvious way of doing this is going straight to the exchange like they've done. They know they can't police all these individual projects, so they're like, look, where are people buying it? Let's go there and tell them this is how it's going to happen.
The source.
But then you've got so many different exchanges based in different jurisdictions that some of them can be, let's say an American exchange, right? Like Kraken, for instance, right? Yes, they have a UK arm, but America doesn't comply with common reporting standards. So if I'm the HMRC and I come to you over at Kraken, I'm like, look, I need Aaron's crypto portfolio.
You're not getting
They're gonna be like, well, we don't need it to show you.
Yeah.
So, and then when you start opening up the world of DeFi, it's a different ball game again. So I think they'll struggle. I think they're hoping that people come forward. But I think the worst thing they possibly could have done was when they was like, look, you can't now draw back into UK bank accounts. I think that was ridiculous because it would have been the easiest money grab for them from a tax perspective. I've put 10k into, say, Coinbase. I've just now pulled 25 out. Well, I know what's happened. But the fact they was like, we're not doing that. I think that they've now created a problem. But one other thing before we move on, this space moves so quickly, right? To the point where I look at this every week, right? I find it hard to keep up with what's going on, right? How they're going to be able to continue to keep up and keep putting different regulations in place to make sure they're keeping up. I don't know how they can do it fast enough. We see how long things take to get put forward, and actually like this regulation's coming from that. And this goes across all industries. I think they're going to struggle to...
It'll be playing catch up, won't it?
Yeah, we're playing catch up now. Even developers are playing catch up, because the reason why I move so fast is because you have someone maybe over at Solana has now developed something over there, and then someone at Ethereum's like, wow, we need to... Everybody's playing catch up with each other because it's so new and the adoption curve's gone crazy. They're playing catch up. So for tax authorities, look, central banks don't know what's going on. Governments don't really know what's going on.
I see. This is where I think it's a little bit dangerous, and I think, look, you've got to be sensible, because let's state the obvious. Anyone who's got, let's say, sub 20k account, if you're not paying tax or planning for it, are you going to get picked up? In my personal opinion, there's not the resource to do that. They're after the Pablo Escobars of, the ones of millions. However, saying that, I would strongly recommend that you put aside and you plan for these tax changes, because I also believe that they are going to come, and you have to. And this is where I think a lot of people, especially youngsters, they think, I'll get on the crypto. If I get lucky, it's all profit.
Yeah. Well, there's some people who've done that and they've drawn it out and spent the money, and
it's gone.
And they're like, well, but then this is something that maybe they've mentioned this and I haven't read it, but if you bought Bitcoin in 2011 before tax regulation was even talked about, does that person now need to declare their profits before it even existed? Like, this is where they're going to struggle, because this is very new, right?
Yeah,
this
you
whole
can't backdate a regulation.
Yeah, exactly. But what are they going to do? So, like, I know that the majority of what I've bought, apart from stuff over the past 12 to 18 months, was well before any regulation was even talked about. Are they now going to say to me, well, you bought stuff back then, so you now owe this? It's like, well, this didn't even exist back then.
Yeah.
So I think this is where they're going to struggle. But look, also people need to understand that, look, there's people in the HMRC who also own crypto, right? There's the task force own crypto, right? They're not just there like, we don't know. Like, some of them own crypto.
But they're at the back of the list.
Yeah. Now, we also, like, HMRC have their own AI software called HMRC Connect, right?
Yeah.
So people think they're going under the radar, they're not. So this software will connect, your passport, the DVLA, your banking. If your lifestyle looks a bit iffy compared to what you're declaring in taxes, then you're going to have the knock eventually, right?
Yeah.
That's what that's there for. We got to understand that machine learning is moving very fast, and for people not to think that tax authorities and governments and central banks aren't using it, you're deluded.
Exactly. I think we imagine them as
dinosaurs,
suited and booted old men and women who are out to get everyone making money. And like you say, people in HMRC, they're buying crypto. That everyone's out to make money. So, I mean, there's some awesome points there. As we sort of come to finalise, what would you say, let's be bold, what would you say 2022 predictions? Where could money be made? There's no advice here, as always, but where would your predictions be?
I'll be looking at some of the IGOs, initial game offerings. You can get them on launch pads like Seedify, GameFi, Engine. Participating in some of those, like they're sort of crowdfunding. It's like a crowdfund where then they launch the project. Yes, it's very high risk, but I think some serious money is going to be made in the gaming space on some of off the launch pads. If you want to be less risky, I'd be looking at like Avalanche, Solana, and then just cost averaging into Bitcoin and Ethereum. But yeah, I think the serious money is going to be made in some off these launch pads, and some of those, and some of the trends that we don't even know that has any hype yet, like maybe adult entertainment, like some of these trends that haven't had that hype, I think they will. Like, it's hard to say with crypto. That's exactly.
You've got to stay so close to it. I think that's what we've learned from this, is you've got to be on the ball all the time.
And be careful how much risk you're taking too. Like, only take the risk that you're comfortable to sleep at night with, because you could be very hyped up from these videos and the marketing that some of these maybe like pre-launch projects are putting together, and you're like, this is going to change the game. Yeah. But that optimism's always there with startups. Yeah. That's why venture capital's so crazy. But 75% I think of people that invested, some of them venture capital firms, I think 75% of what they invest in fails, or maybe more. So you've got to be, yes, these stuff look really good, they're pitching it to you, but if they go to zero, you need to be willing to accept that. So don't be just chucking everything in there hoping. Like, I think Blocktopia did 700x, right? Wow. Now that doesn't mean that all the others are going to do that. It doesn't mean they're going to do it 5x. So yeah, make sure you understand the sort of the psychology behind behavioral finance is so important to understand, that you're not looking for confirmation bias, recency bias. You don't want to be looking for all that. You need to understand how you act as an individual and stop focusing on other people.
Yeah, so really this comes down to also investing without emotions, and this is something that I talk about a lot. Really important. Dee, there's been huge amounts of value. I know that the audience would have learned a huge amount. Again, huge takeaways for me. I can only thank you again for coming on the channel. And Dee, if they don't know who you are, where can they reach out and learn more about you?
Instagram, DWE_Ludlow, and jointhefivamclub.co.uk. They're just both of them places, mainly Instagram, and then everything's on there anyway.
Awesome, mate. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the channel, and everyone who has watched so far, thank you so much, and we will see you all very soon.